Now this is a pictures of net overview, network address translation overview. Like I operating system router, ASA supports network address translation and port address translation, and this address can also be provided either statically or dynamically. NAT and PAT can be deployed using one of this method. One is inside NAT, the second one is outside NAT, and there is another one which is third called bidirectional. Now the inside NAT, um, the typical uh, NAT deployment method is the inside NAT. When a host from a higher security interface has traffic destined for a lower security interface. So inside is the higher security and outside is the lower security, or DMZ is the lower security. So this type of net, which is inside net, um, um, translate the internal host address to a global address, which is this one, 209.165.200.224, translated into a global address. The ASA then restore the original inside IP address for return traffic. It restored to the original IP address, which is this one, for the return traffic. Now, an outside net. Outside net is this method is used when traffic from a lower security interface is destined for a host on a higher security interface. And it is translated. This method may be useful to make a host on the outside. This is the host on the outside, appear as a one from a known internal IP address. And there is another one called bidirectional, which is that indicate that both inside and outside net are used together. By default, Cisco ASA do not need an address translation policy to be created when the higher level security interface must access resource on lower security interface. However, if a packet matches a NAT or PAT policy, the ASA translate the address. Traditionally, NAT was configured using NAT, which is NAT, or global, and static commands. However, AutoNAT is a new feature introduced in ASA version 8.3, and that has replaced the method of configuring NAT. The global and static command are no longer supported. AutoNAT has considerably simplified the configuration and troubleshooting of NAT. AutoNAT takes advantage of using network object as the building blocks to configure all variations of NAT. A NAT object is created, and it is within the object that the NAT is configured. Recall that network objects can be used to identify a host, subnet, or a range of IP address using one of this method. We can use a host command, host and IP address command. You can see that we can use a object network inside net, and then we can use a subnet, assign a network subnet to the named object, and then finally we use a net command, which is net. Parameters must be specified in object using the following command. So when you use a NAT, we have two parameters. One is uh, inside outside, and the dynamic, and then we use the dynamic, and then we use interface. Now dynamic and interface. The choice of parameters to choose from is directly related to the type of NAT required. You see, in a dynamic NAT, many to many translation. Usually an inside pool of private address requiring a public address for another pool. And so this is why the dynamic is a sample NAT configuration is displayed in this figure. You can see the next pictures. So so this is a sample NAT configuration. We got SA is divides the NAT configuration into section. The SA divides NAT configuration into section. The first section defines the network to be translated using a network object. The second section defines the actual NAT command parameters. This appears into two different places in the running configuration. See that the first section defines the network to be translated. This is the range. This is the network. This is the range 240 and the subnet mask. There's a two-net, there's a public IP, and then there's inside net. This is a subnet. So a first section defines the network to be translated, a network object, and the second this is the second one, NAT command parameters. This appears in two different places in the show running configuration, and therefore two commands are required to display NAT configuration using show run object and show NAT. Because we have this is show running config NAT, show running config object. So when we use the show running config NAT, we can see object network inside NAT and NAT inside outside, and it's a dynamic interface. And when the show running config object, we can see object network inside NAT, and this is the subnet 192.168.1.0 So we use two commands to display NAT configurations. So a sample, the ASA divide the NAT configuration into two sections. So one is subnet, other one is NAT. The first defines the network to be translated. This is the one that defines the network to be translated. And the second section defines the actual NAT. This is the section that defines the actual NAT's parameters. Another ASA version feature is called twice NAT. Twice NAT um,